Welcome to Plastic Model Mojo, a podcast dedicated to scale modeling, as well as the news and events around the hobby, where we hope to be informative and entertaining and help you keep your modeling mojo alive. Today we're back for episode 43 of Plastic Model Mojo. You ready to have some fun tonight?
I'm always ready to have some fun when it comes to modeling. 43 episodes. Unbelievable.
We're getting up there. We'll hit the 50 this year, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of editing.
Oh, it seemed real easy for me. All I did is talk.
Well, what's up in your model sphere?
Well, my model sphere has been dominated. It's been a little bit hectic. I've been jumping from project to project and doing a little on a number of different things, and so it's a little hectic. But as always, the big thing this time of year is getting prepped for the nationals. Can't wait for it. I'm looking forward to it. Now it's just a matter of can I survive to the point where I get to go?
Well, you'll get to go.
Yeah. So how about you? What's your model sphere been looking like?
A little lax. I've been still getting things packed up for the show. I went out and got the Pelican case for all our gear, and I've got to get the dividers hogged out for all the microphones and mic stands and cables. And
we need to hire a roadie for that.
I don't know. Have to find us one.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can afford that or not.
I'm not sure it's in the budget.
But in addition, I'm just still contemplating my next project.
But
now that Mooseru Cup's here.
Well, that is your next project.
Well, we'll talk about that more later. But
okay.
Not a lot. I've been busy with my new job, Dave, and my new car. So
yeah. And it's the spring really. My modeling in the summer tends to slow down just simply from the standpoint there's yard care, there's pool care, there's family vacation, which is coming up. So it does tend to affect my model sphere. So, Mike, what's your modeling fluid tonight?
Well, after that highly enjoyable Weller Special Reserve last episode, I'm back to the Bullet. Referencing your comment about other bourbons, I still think this one's really bourbon even after the Weller.
Oh, it is absolutely. Listen, for, unless you're Bond villain rich, you're not going to be drinking Weller or a Peppy Van Winkle 24/7. So yeah, Bullet's a great bourbon for your everyday consumption. In fact, my local liquor store, I passed through this afternoon, and they had it on special for $23.
Not bad.
No, not a bad price at all. I think I'm going to jump back up there tomorrow and pick up a bottle.
Well, look around. There's some out there now with a bottleneck hanging coupon on it.
Oh, really?
For a couple of $3 off, so that's even better.
Oh, that would be even better. I'll have to keep an eye out for that.
Well, and funny thing is, there's an episode of Parks and Rec where Ron Swanson orders a Bullet. I mean, what more is there to say?
That's an endorsement you can stand behind.
What about you, man?
Well, I am drinking a new beer to me, nothing I've ever had before, Sierra Nevada's Big Little Thing Imperial IPA. So it's 9% alcohol by volume. Not bad. It reminds you very much of the New Belgium Voodoo Ranger Imperial IPA. It maybe has a little more depth, a little deeper flavor, and a little more hop on the back end. But I think it's going to get me through the episode. We'll see.
Well, I used to know a guy named Dave who didn't like hoppy beers.
Yeah, I don't know who that guy was and what his problem was, but he was wrong.
Well, we got some listener mail, Dave.
All right, let's get into it.
First up is our friend Joe Porche from the Las Vegas IPMS. And he says, for your information, Bob was never sane. I guess that's in reference to your comment about talking to him here before the show if he's got any sanity left.
I am half convinced that to be an IPMS National Show chairman, you have to be a little bit crazy.
I probably do. Well, Bob, if you're listening, I'm sure you are. You guys can sort that out later. I'm just the messenger.
That's right.
A couple 1,000 miles away almost, so he can't punch me.
There you go.
Next up is Francesco Bianchini from Viareggio, Italy.
All right.
That's a long way.
Hail Italia.
Well, apparently I'm not the only one with a similar journey to Evan McCallum, our guest on the last episode. Francesco's running a hard parallel journey.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. He's also an armor modeler, both in 35th and 72nd scale. He's also young at 23 years old. He's also an aerospace engineer, a new one. And he's also yet to build an aircraft model.
Wow.
He's like Italian. He's Italian Evan. I guess he needs to start a YouTube channel now. Exactly.
Those two, been twins separated at birth, man.
Well, he enjoyed it, and I can see why he enjoyed it. He got a lot out of all the parallels between the two, and they're about the same age, have the same career path, build the same stuff, and looking to expand in the same direction. That's pretty funny.
Now we need to know if Italian Evan has a girlfriend who's let him put in a train layout and a modeling bench in the apartment.
I guess they got a lot in common.
They do.
As the Sherman brothers said, it's a small world after all, Dave.
True enough.
Now that you got that in your head, you're welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, another one from Las Vegas, Nevada. Dan Knopfel. He says he received an IPMS family membership for Christmas.
Yay!
And he and his model building son will be attending the national show. Well, that'll be convenient.
Yeah, real convenient.
And he says he enjoys the Dr. Strangebrush segments, and he did patronize our sponsor as a result.
Well, good.
He's got a little bit more to say about attending the show, but we'll save that for our Countdown to Vegas segment.
Sounds good.
All right. What else? What else we got? Eric Kinser from Silicon Valley area of California. He got a nice laugh out of your $100 worth of B-24 decals.
It was at least $100 worth of beach. I'm here to tell you, I'm pretty sure that it was significantly more than $100.
And he laughed some more when we sized up the prospects of the 30+ kit build you're faced with to do all these.
Yes. He's not the only one who's rubbed that in. Jim Bates has pointed that out to me, and I've challenged Mr. Bates and told him for every Ploesti Raider I can finish, he has to finish a Dam Buster.
There you go. And on that comment, he says it is Ploesti.
Ploesti, yes.
Yes, accent on the second syllable and an SH. Kind of like Budapest.
Budapest, yeah. Yep, no, there's no doubt. Hey, listen, I come from a state where Versailles is Versailles and Warsaw is Warsaw.
Yeah, I guess you're right. And finally, our old friend Alex Restrepo right here in Louisville. He says he was digging the interview with Evan, a.k.a. Panzermeister 36. And he also wanted to tell us that he recently stumbled onto a Halcyon Nostromo.
Oh, the Nostromo.
The Nostromo, yes, from Alien.
Yep.
For $15 at a yard sale. That's a pretty good find. Those kits are kind of rare.
Those kits are rare and expensive. If Alec wasn't such a great model builder, he'd pop that one on eBay and make himself a nice little profit, or could if he wanted to.
And those kits are a lot of modeling value for your dollar back at their retail price anyway.
Yep, absolutely they are.
And you know what I mean by that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's a pretty good find because he said it was in good shape. Box was in nice condition. And he wants to know what our best score was.
Oh, God.
You got one?
Let me think you go ahead if you've got one. Let me think, because you knew this was coming.
I knew this was coming. So
let me think for a minute.
Well, some clueless rube sent me old Airfix Sam 2 for free.
I know that clueless rube. I resemble that clueless rube.
That's a little pricey little kit too.
I know it is. I know it is, but I'm sure in your capable hands, you will make it shine.
It's gonna be more rare because there's gonna be one less in the world unbuilt at some point.
That's right.
Because it's going together eventually. I don't know, the two Kitty Hawk Kingfishers I'm buying out of Hong Kong might prove to be one. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah,
they got to get here in good condition.
Oh, are they still in transit?
Yeah, I chose cheap ocean freight, so we'll see when they get here.
Hopefully the salt water doesn't hurt them.
So I'm not sure, to be honest. When weighed against the scope of my stash, I'm not sure even a free kit is a bargain at this point.
Yeah, that's true too.
So I don't know. Have you ever found a rare one or something that's hard to find for a good price?
Actually, not so much either of those things, but I will tell you that when I go to model shows and go through the vendors and, have the guys getting rid of old kits, I find Tamiya 72nd scale zeros, which it's the best model kit I've ever built. I've built 2 of them. I have like 6 more in the stash. It's just a fun build. It's some of the most fun I've ever had building models because they go together so well. They are such great kits. And they're a great canvas if you want to go nuts on one to trick it out. But when I go to model shows, I find those kits on sale tables, on vendor tables, sometimes for $8, $10, $12 asking price. And whenever I see one, I end up buying it. But just because it is such a good kit at such a, that's what I call the automatic buy price. It's like, yeah, I don't care how many I've got of them. I'm going to buy that for that price because that's too good a deal. So that's how I got the 6 or 7 sitting in my stash right now.
Well, you can build those between B-24s.
Exactly. Nothing but B-24s and zeros from here on out.
That's it. Nothing else. I don't know that I've scored one like that. We'll see what he does with it.
I'll be interested. And Alex, he'll build it.
Well, good for him.
He will.
He got to buy one for $15 and so what does it normally go for?
Oh God. I'd like to look on eBay here, sitting in front of the computer. Let me look on eBay. You are not going to believe how much that kit is. Would you like to take a guess?
$400.
$340.
Hey.
I would say Alex did well for himself.
Yeah, it's not bad.
That is not bad at all. Not bad at all.
He can paint that with his new Harder and Steenbeck airbrush.
That's right. And get himself some AK, what is it, Starship filth? Is that AK or ammo? I can't keep track.
I don't know. I can't either. Well, that's all for listener mail this episode.
All right. As usual, this is the time where you hear me ask you to, when you're done with this episode, please stop, take a moment, rate us on your whatever podcasting app you listen to us on. We'd appreciate 5 stars because it helps other people find us. Also, if you know of a modeling friend or buddy who's not listening to the podcast, we'd appreciate it if you would give us a recommendation. Personal recommendations are the most important way that a podcast grows. So if you do that, we'd appreciate it.
And while you're doing that and you want to listen to some more 5-star podcasts, cruise on over to www.modelpodcasts.com, and there you'll find the links we've set up to all the other podcasts in Podspace. And it's a quick, easy link, and you can see them all, right? Take them all in. When you're not listening to podcasts, you can check out our blog and YouTube friends out on the internet. Chris Wallace and Model Airplane Maker. Stephen Lee with Sprue Pie with Frets. Jim Groves, the Inchai guy for all things 72nd scale. And Jim Bates, a Scale Canadian TV. All of this stuff is some really good content. If you like reading and looking at pictures, watching YouTube videos, please check all those things out. You'll find some interesting perspectives on the hobby and some good build technique information from some of them.
Yep. Hale just dropped a new YouTube just in the last few days. Definitely you should go check it out. Finally, if you are not a member of your national IPMS organization, either IPMS USA or IPMS Canada, IPMS Australia, which whatever country you're in, please consider joining IPMS USA. For folks in the U.S., provides the structure under which all of the modeling clubs and all the regional contests, as well as the national contest function. They promote the hobby. They've got a really great hobby magazine. So I would urge you to, if you're not already, to join or to rejoin, if you've let it lapse, your IPMS national membership.
All right, Dave, we're proud to take a word from our sponsor right now.
Sounds good.
Plastic Model Mojo is now brought to you by Model Paint Solutions, your source for Harder Steenbeck airbrushes, David Union power tools, and laboratory-grade mixing, measuring, and storage tools for use with all your model paints, be they acrylic, enamels, or lacquers. Check them out at www.modelpaintsolutions.com. It's countdown to Vegas time, Dave.
It's getting close, man. I can, about 2 weeks out from the Nationals, my palms start sweating. I start to get tingles up the spine. It must be getting close.
Well, at the time of this recording, we are a mere 23 days away from the IPMS National Convention in Las Vegas, Nevada. So we're just about inside of, well, we will be inside of 3 weeks once this drops on Friday.
Cannot wait.
There's not a lot of news from Bob this episode. We talked a little bit, but we're planning on having him on one more time before our final episode to drop before the Nationals. Now, it's not our last episode ever, but just the one we're going to drop before we travel to Las Vegas, and we can get all the last minute details at that time. Dave, I'm really looking forward to it. We've got a great table location. There's lots of listeners who are going to be there and have expressed an interest in stopping by and saying, hey, we've seen some emails about some special gifts. Looking forward to that. And it's going to be a good time.
Yeah. And listen, guys, if you're out there, you're listening, we're going to be there. We're going to be at a table. Stop by and say hi. Let us know what you think. We'll take suggestions for subjects for future podcasts. It'll be great to put faces with names. That's one of the great things about the both local contests or regional contests, and surely the national, is that you get to put a face with a name that you may have interacted with a lot online, but you've never actually seen the person in person. So please feel free to, don't be shy. Come on by, say hi. Let's talk modeling, because Lord knows that's what we're doing here, and that's what we have fun doing.
Well, we'll be easy to find. We're in the vendor room. We have a great big tablecloth with our name on it. So come on by.
We got to bring the plastic sheet for when they start throwing rotten eggs and fruit at it, something like that.
We might, like the Blues Brothers.
That's right. That's right. We're going to work behind a chicken wire fence.
Well, getting back to the listener mail, Dan Knopfel's listener mail in particular, his question is for us in that, are there any suggestions on attending the show with his son who will be entering the preteen category? Now, his son is 10 years old and a model builder, and they're doing this as a father and son thing. What do you think?
Have fun. When you bring your kid along, you get to see the wonder through his eyes. So enjoy it with him. Spend a lot of time in the model room looking at the models, because he'll be amazed and hopefully he'll be inspired by it. When you take him into the vendor room, he's going to find something that he wants for his next project, whatever. It's a great opportunity to let him see the wide variety of what modeling is. And he can, if he's interested in figures, or if he's interested in World War I stuff or cars or whatever, it's a great opportunity for him to see the whole gamut of modeling. And I will tell you, modelers are always happy to see young kids getting into modeling. We all like modeling, and we all worry variously about how the future of modeling is going to be. So you will find vendors very, very friendly to young kids just getting into modeling. So be sure he wears comfortable shoes. Be sure you wear comfortable shoes, because you are going to do a whole lot of walking. Finally, depending on what his interests are, take a look at the seminar schedule and see if there's something that matches up with his particular interest, because a great way for him to really get invested in the hobby is to go see one of these presentations that's of particular interest to him. And finally, stop by our table and say hi. We'd love to meet you and your son.
Back to something you said about the vendor room. I think you need to let your son ask how much a particular item is.
Yeah, that's right. I swear there are at least one or two modelers who hire a child for the weekend just to take advantage of that particular technique. Because yes, the vendors are definitely more likely to give young kids interested in a particular model a better price.
Or no price. You remember when we were at Indie Dave and the kid came to the table and he said he had like $2 left and asked how much that kit was, and you said it was $0.
Yes. Well, hey, listen, if he gets some enjoyment out of building that, that's more than $2 in my pocket. What do I need another $2 for? If it brings joy to a kid's heart, that's all you could ask for. So,
well, I think hopefully they come by the table.
Yeah, hopefully they do. Mike, what's your benchtop looking like?
It's looking like a bill sorting pile at the moment.
That's kind of coincidental, because that's kind of what mine's looking like. I'm all over the map. So what you've been doing?
Not much, unfortunately. I'm still working on the bass for the Zis 2. Yeah. It's really starting to sound like a broken record. I got all the wood parts flat finished. I may have said that last time. I don't even remember at this point. And while we were talking to our Canadian friends on our little virtual build night, I cut the basswood sides out for the sides of to trim out the diorama base. I'm kind of doing it the Plasmo way.
Yeah.
And trying to give that a go. Given the whole stained wood base thing kind of a skip this time and see how it turns out.
Yeah. And you still thinking about what's next?
I'm always thinking about what's next, and it always changes.
But you haven't actually cut any plastic on what's next.
I've not cut any plastic on what's next. I gotta get this thing. I gotta get this Zis done. I gotta get it off the map, off the bench.
I hear you. My M30 is sitting there, and it's been going for more than 12 months.
But you got other projects though. I don't have a lot else going on.
Yeah, I got several other projects going on, and I got distracted too. So,
and I got to break the float plane back out and finish that one too.
Yes, you do. Yeah, you do. But the nice thing is, when we come back from the Nationals, I don't know about you, but the Nationals always get me fired up. I get inspired. I come home from the Nationals and just throw myself at the bench. I end up finishing a lot of models in the fall after the Nationals. I'm hoping that's what happens this year.
Well, I hope so too, for you and me. It's just for some reason this was easier last year.
Yes, it was. Well, we were locked down. There wasn't all this other stuff.
Wasn't crap else to do, really.
Yeah, true enough.
Modeler's paradise.
Yeah. Well, it's not exactly a great trade-off, but we'll take the silver linings wherever we can find them.
I think so.
The Mosquito is I don't think it's going to get, because of my work and family schedule, I don't think it's going to be finished by Vegas. It's going to be close, but I don't think it will be finished. I've started to do a little more work on the TU-128. I've got distracted and decided to experiment with chipping fluid on a 72nd scale aircraft carrier deck base that Bates had sent me. And that probably means that, because I like the way the base is coming out. In fact, it's almost completely done. But what that probably means is that I'm going to have to build an Arma Wildcat or an Edward Hellcat to go on the base.
Just send it to Chris Wallace. Let him put his Hellcat on it.
Hellcat on. I've actually joked that I was going to do that. And hell, the problem is his Wildcat's probably going to look too darn good for that base. But I'll do something. But I am modeling. I'm just real scattered right now, and I think that a lot of that has to do with summer, and it has to do with the nationals coming up and family stuff. So I'm trying to juggle a lot of balls in the air. And of course, the one that doesn't get as much attention is the hobby, because, you got to, sad as it is to say, you got to put work and family first.
Well, is that all you got going on?
That's pretty much it. I'll try and post some pictures on the Facebook page so that people can see a little bit of stuff. But that's pretty much where I sit right now.
Well, you're doing about as bad as I am right now.
That's okay. We're here. Remember, this whole thing was about you and I keeping the mojo together.
That's right. Well, as modelers, when you're not building, you're buying.
Yeah. Anything
broke your wallet in the last 2 weeks or since this last segment aired?
Well, only one thing, really. And this is another thing about the Nationals, is that usually about a month out from the Nationals, I stop buying hobby stuff just simply because I'm trying to bankroll money to go to the vendor room at the Nationals, the world's largest traveling hobby shop, as it's known. And it is easy at the Nationals, and I have done so. It is easy to drop an embarrassing amount of cash. I usually set a very strict budget, usually partly successful at sticking to that, although there's always that one thing that you find that you're like, I didn't know I needed that.
Damn, is it expensive?
Damn, is it expensive. That's right. So I've been limiting myself. Now, the one thing I have done is the new 1/44 scale B-52H that was released. I have acquired it through our local hobby shop. Now, I have not gone and picked it up. Brian texted me that it's in. I just haven't been able to get over and pick it up. And the reason I did this is that Caracal Decals released a decal sheet for B-52 60-033, which was one of the B-52s that my brother flew, and he refers to it as his particular favorite B-52. He flew it in combat in Bosnia, and so I want to get that and build it for him. I've got a 72nd scale B-52 that I'm going to build for him as well, but of course, a 72nd scale B-52 is not a small thing, whereas I can build a 1/44 scale B-52, give it to him, and he'll still have room in his room to actually fit in his room. So, but I am excited to that they came out with that. I'm excited that the decals came out, and I'm going to have to work that into the build sequence somewhere here relatively shortly, because I'd like to build it and give it to him before both of us are dead.
That's a good plan.
Thank you. So what's your wallet looking like? Is it fat and ready for Vegas, or is it skinny and crying a little bit?
Well, it took a little hit this week.
Uh-oh, what happened?
Oh, I got on JDAR Models in Poland, our friends in Poland, their website.
Oh, that hurts, because you can't just buy one thing.
Of course not. It's got to be shipped from Poland, so you might as well fill the box.
Exactly.
Well, I picked up from part models, the Polish
Yeah.
PE company parts.
Yeah.
They have 3 etch sets for the IBG single turret 7TP.
3 etch sets?
Yep.
Jeez.
They have an interior set, they have an interior set, an exterior set, and a fender set.
Okay, well, let me stop and ask you several questions on this.
Okay.
One, can the 7TP be opened up in such a way, naturally opened up in such a way that you can see much of the interior?
That's a good question. I think that's going to score about a 6 out of 10, I think.
Okay.
So the front hatch can be opened, the turret can be opened, and the engine deck can be opened, but there's no like side hatches into the crew compartment on the superstructure or anything like that. So
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see.
So how much do you figure of this 3 sheets of photo etch do you think you'll actually use?
I don't know. That's a good question. I have to wait till I get them and see what's on it.
All right.
I mean, it's all just blurry pictures now, right?
Yeah, that's right. Sounds to me like your 7TP is quickly moving up the ranks as the next project.
It's kind of distilling to the top.
Yes, like a fine bourbon.
In addition to that, I picked up a copy of the IBG twin turret 7TP as well.
Now, did they make the twin turret one as much?
It was the first one, so I don't know the production numbers.
Okay.
I mean, it was not uncommon, so probably.
Okay. So which would you do? Which way are you leaning right now? Is building the single turret or the twin turret?
The single.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd start there. Because Part hadn't released their 3 photo etch sets for
for the twin turret one.
Yeah, it's kind of distilling to the top. So
is there a particular photo or photos that have inspired you that you're looking to reproduce?
No, it pretty much had a couple of factory schemes, and they were kind of sparse on marking, so they're all fairly similar.
Well, good. Are you thinking figure with it?
I don't know, maybe.
Because I've always thought the Polish tanker uniforms were good looking.
Well, that one copy of the single turret's got that mini art figure set with it. So,
right.
So I guess I will.
Okay. Well, good. Good. Maybe you'll be like Night Shift. This is my first figure ever. Look at it, and it comes out better than anything you've ever done in your life.
I think so. Well, nothing else broke your wallet?
That's it, man. Like I said, I've been hoarding money, man. I am.
This will be a good segment after the Nationals.
Yeah. We're going to have to do. In fact, it might be an entire episode of, okay, list all the things that you bought at the Nationals. I'm pretty sure that could fill an entire episode, or
it probably could.
It could have in previous national. I know that 2019 at Chattanooga, I definitely could have filled an entire episode with that.
Well, our special segment tonight, I've titled Mojo Miscellaneous. We got a couple of topics to talk through here, kind of modeling, and then the other one's a little modeling adjacent subject.
Okay, sounds great.
The first one is this Musaru Cup subject and build.
Why don't you give everybody listening, of course, most people probably already know, but give them the 2-minute drill on what the Musaru Cup is, how it happened, and what the subject is this year.
Well, for those who don't know, and if you're listening to all the other podcasts, I don't know how you couldn't know, but there's some new people among us, or maybe they don't listen to the other shows. I don't know.
Maybe.
The Musaru Cup started between Scale Model Podcast and in Canada and the guys in Australia at On the Bench. They each picked a subject and sent it to the other podcast who selected a builder, and then they were judged by some of the folks at the IPMS Hamilton in Hamilton, Ontario. Just the two of them. And then the next year after that, it was still just those two podcasts, though that was the year that we came along and Plastic Posse came along and several of the others, Model Geeks and Just Making Conversation.
Yeah.
All started last year, but still, it was still IPMS Hamilton stepped up the game a little bit and provided the kits, and they built those couple different auto gyros.
Yeah.
But it was on the bench and Scale Model Podcast doing the builds. This year we got drug into the fray along with a couple of other podcasts that got started after Moose Cup was initiated, and that's where we're at now. So I guess it's us and Scale Model Podcast on the bench, just making conversation, and the Model Geeks this go around. Did I leave anybody out? The posse, yes, I did, didn't I?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Don't forget those guys. And the kits are provided through the folks at IPMS Hamilton, and it's a Gundam kit, Dave.
Yeah. I have never, I mean, I've seen Gundams built up. I know what a Gundam is. I have never in my life built a Gundam.
Well, I haven't either. Now, it was what Scale Model Podcast sent to On the Bench, the first Moose Cup. So it's a repeat for On the Bench guys anyway.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully they'll like it. I think Mr. Goldfinch is up this time. Ian built the other one.
Okay. And I assume you'll be representing our team this year.
Don't lean on me, man. You can't afford the ticket.
Well, we want to win, and if we're going to win, you've got to build it.
Well, here's the deal. My group build enthusiasm.
Yes. Yeah. I have the same problem. You and I have talked about that.
And we got an interesting subject here.
Now, since you've got the kit, I mean, is it? I hear they're spectacular as far as fit and finish go. Does it look like it's particularly different than building just a normal model kit?
I don't know yet. Well, it's one of the Bandai high grade kits, so it's
right.
one of their nicer offerings. Explicitly, it's a if I get this right, MSN-06S-2 Sinanju Stein, a narrative version. Clearly, that means something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think we drew short straw, Dave.
Do you know, does this particular item come from a TV show or movie, or is there some sort of history behind it? And if so, where can we view the underlying anime or whatever type of cartoon or TV show?
I have to assume there's some media IP around this, but it's the blind asking the blind. I don't know. Okay,
guys, you guys listening out there, I'm sure that particularly the folks that are heavily into Gundam know the background on this and know what IP, what media it comes from. If any of you can give us a pointer, because I would at least be interested in viewing that IP to see what the backstory to the prototype item is.
Me too. It might get me motivated even.
Yeah, absolutely. So point us to it. Well,
I said short straw because I've seen some of the others that were sent to the other podcasts. And there's a couple of those that I could get my head around easier.
Yeah.
Still kind of the mobile suit thing, but they're a little more clunky and I don't know, less dramatic looking for lack of a better description.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure what to think of this one. Stu at Scale Model Podcast was speaking to the quality of these kits and how blissful this was going to be, to extrapolate a bit.
Yeah.
But you know me, Dave, how far down the list is kit buildability for my project selection?
Definitely not your top priority.
I'm not sure it's on the list.
Yeah. Yeah, you would if you want to build a kit, you'd carve it from bare block of styrene if you really wanted it. That's absolutely true. Whereas buildability is probably number 2 or 3 on my list.
I think this thing probably snaps together.
Do you think it does?
I think it probably does. I think you could go either way with it.
Okay. Okay.
That's interesting. So we'll see.
Well,
Outside of scale and genre is coming back to haunt me, I guess.
yeah, well, I think we're going to have to, we will have to, you know what you ought to do? You ought to bring it to Vegas, and we should meditate deeply over it in the evenings over a bourbon, and inspiration may well strike us.
It might, but I think we've decided I'm the one who's going to be doing this.
That's fine with me, man.
Well, confusion and jokes aside, we're going to have to thank the fellas there at IPMS Hamilton for taking the reins and turning it into something a lot bigger than it started out to be.
Yes.
And apparently we need to thank the guys and gals, I guess, at Lightspeed Global, the Canadian wholesaler who has generously donated these kits to this Mooseroo Cup challenge.
Yes, we guys, the guys at IPMS Hamilton are they've been wonderful in promoting this and setting it up and including us this time. And all jokes aside, we appreciate it, and I'm sure it's going to be great to see what everybody does with what they got.
Well, again, jokes aside, I've felt the need to have something of some kind of complexity to paint with my H&S airbrush that I'm still cutting my teeth on before I tackle that E16 Paul.
Well, listen, I'm sure this will be really good to practice on. You will find the H&S to be the Infinity to be a fantastic airbrush. Every time I use it, I am impressed by some of the things I'm able to do with it. So I think it'll be a great way for you to cut your teeth on that airbrush.
So I guess I need to start building it.
Yes, you do.
All right. Well, we're glad to participate.
Absolutely.
We'll see what happens next year.
Well, I will be rooting you on from the sidelines, cheering your every effort.
Yeah, I bet you will. Be mocking me incessantly.
No, I wouldn't do that. What in the history of our multi-decade friendship would lead you to believe that?
No, we don't have time for that.
Yeah, true enough.
Well, speaking of time, another one I'd like to discuss a little bit is a thread that popped up on the IPMS USA Facebook page this week involving podcast lengths and durations.
Mm-hmm. I happened to see that post on the IPMS USA Facebook page. And for all those listeners, if you're on Facebook and you haven't linked to the IPMS USA Facebook group, please do so. There's a lot of interesting conversations like the one we're about to reference that take place on it.
Well, this one didn't take place too long because the thread got closed before I could comment or respond. So that's why I'm doing it here.
Yeah.
The thread started, the thread starter, let's say this, was of the opinion that most podcast episodes in this space are simply too long. And he started a conversation around that and kind of played his hand up front. And I guess he chose to close the thread before I could respond. I'm not going to call out the author by name. If y'all want to go look, it's on the IPMS USA Facebook page. I really have no axe to grind with the author.
He asked a perfectly normal question.
That's right. And I didn't get to respond. I was busy typing up in Word so I wouldn't make a bunch of dumb mistakes in it because I'm an engineer and I can't spell or punctuate and that sort of thing. And I noticed it was closed. I was like, well, crap, what do I do now? Because it seemed a little sudden because he'd asked for the podcaster to respond. And I think a couple of fellas from a couple of the other podcasts got in there a little bit, but not a whole lot because the thing was only open for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
The responses that were on there, though, were pretty evenly mixed between people who thought they ought to be less than an hour or at an hour. There were a couple exchanges that kind of crossed over into getting a little terse, I guess, but
I think that may have been what led the author to closed the thread.
Well, maybe, but it wasn't terrible.
No,
Really.
that's true.
Yeah, all internet considered, right?
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah,
Maybe
by the standards of regular internet, it was very gentle.
Anyway, like I said, I was typing a response in Word, but it got closed before I could say anything. And Dave, we've kicked this around quite a bit.
As you well know, I have a very strong opinion on episode length. Longtime listeners probably realize you can go back through all of our episodes, and with the exception of episodes where we interview a third person, all of our episodes tend to run somewhere between an hour and 20 and an hour and 30. And I am convinced that that is a very good length for the podcast. Simply on the old entertainment maxim that you always want to leave them wanting more. You never want your audience asking, when is this going to end? Or can I fast forward through part of it or something like that? So I'm a big believer in trying to keep episodes down to an hour and 20, an hour and 40. Now, I will tell listeners that part of the reason that magic works on our podcast, in my opinion, is that Mike edits the podcast very judiciously. He slices out dead time. He gets rid of stumbles, and he tightens up the podcast. I think I've said more than once on the podcast that when the podcast drops and I go and actually listen to it, it's almost as if I'm listening to a different podcast than the one I recorded with Mike four days earlier, because he's tightened it so much. But I do think, interviews accepted, that I do personally prefer a shorter rather than longer podcast.
Well, we have our opinions. That's yours, and I'm sort of there. I'm sort of not. My opinions on podcast length gravitate more from the edit time involved and what I'm willing to put into it.
Yes.
Not so much being fearful of listener fatigue. And we tease the Plastic Posse podcast and Scott for their longer format, Gilligan's Island jokes and all, but it's just in fun. That's their show. They can do however hell they want, and it's a good show, and I like it, and I listen to it. I just don't want to edit that much content every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
it's a lot. He's taking on a lot. He's doing a good job with it, but that's a lot of time behind the scenes after you record a session.
Yeah, especially if I'm not so sure that any of the other, well, I don't want to say, because I haven't listened to every episode of every other podcast. So, but you put a whole lot of effort into the editing of our podcast. And so I think that does help us not only keep it tight and therefore keep it shorter, but also, since you don't want to, you have a daytime job and a wife and 2 children, and you don't want to invest your life in editing, 3.5 hours of raw content. I think that's a nice control that helps us at least find that sweet spot of an hour 20 to an hour 40.
I can say we've never gotten a complaint that our show was too long. In fact, we've only gotten suggestions that we make it longer.
Yes, that is true.
To be honest, which is kind of interesting, given the position of the thread that started on the IPMS Facebook page.
Yes.
In direct response to that thread, and the fact that the author stated he was interested, well, when he closed the thread, that it was interesting that nobody mentioned the opportunities for the show sponsors. And I think that's probably happened for 2 reasons. One, the thread was only open for 3 hours. So in all fairness, there wasn't a whole lot of time for any of the podcasters to find it and respond. It just simply got closed.
Yeah.
For reasons he knows, and that's fine. But when you boil it down, it's a self-answering position, I think. The fact that the podcasts even have sponsors shows that said sponsors are happy with the opportunities as they have been negotiated.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think the sponsors gravitate to the podcast or podcasts that suit their particular fancy.
So with Plastic Model Mojo in particular, our sponsor, Model Paint Solutions, is going to be around for 3 or 4 special segments a year, hopefully helping folks improve their airbrushing, unless you're from Quebec. And, you know, shamelessly promoting his great business all the while. That's what he gets out of the deal. And we've had more than one listener write in and tell us they've patronized him because of what he said and what they've learned during his segments, which is the way it works.
Yep. And I do think another thing to consider is that, and if the discussion had gone on longer, maybe this would have come up, that with multiple podcasts now, everybody is finding their own style / length / format / whatever. And, you know, there's not just one brand of tomato sauce, one brand of beer, one brand of the reason there are varieties are different people like different things. And some people like multiple things. I listen to multiple modeling podcasts. And so I think that the varied length is probably due, at least in part, to just the varying formats and styles among the different podcasts.
And I take them in differently, depending on, you know, if I'm going to be at my bench in a while, I'll queue up one of the long ones. I listen to James and Malcolm on the road a lot. There's a short format show, usually under an hour. Almost always, I think it's always been under an hour.
Yeah.
But that's a great one for my commute time now. My short commute time, thank God. I can usually get through just making conversation, going and coming from work in a single day.
Yeah, well, and to make I'm the exact same way. I rather famously, I listen to On the Bench on Saturdays when I'm doing yard work, and that's become some
a running joke
at this point. But that's exactly what I do, and because they run 2 to 3 hours depending on what their particular segment is. It's usually somewhere around 2 hours, maybe a little more, which just happens to work for me doing my Saturday morning yard cutting and trimming and such as like that. So, you know, they do fit in different areas. Whereas like a PPP, I may listen to when I'm like you, when I'm modeling, or I may break up a PPP and use it for several commutes back and forth.
Yes, there is the pause button.
Yes, there is the pause button. That is absolutely true. You don't have to listen to it, any podcast, straight through unbroken. And in fact, I would argue that modeling podcasts particularly lend themselves to being, you know, as opposed to a narrative podcast like a history podcast or a true crime podcast, where, you know, it flows better if you listen to the whole thing, the whole episode. I think modeling podcasts lend themselves quite well to being paused and restarted.
All right. Anything else on that?
Nothing else on that?
You know, we'll entertain listeners' opinions on the topic.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We'd like to hear not only on length, but on anything particular, particularly in regard to our podcast. Anything that suggestions you've got, suggestions for topics, suggestions for stylistic changes. You know, none of this is set in stone. And like I said, it started out as Mike and I doing what we do, even if nobody was listening, just sitting here talking to each other about modeling. So any suggestions you got, we're open to.
Well, since this is a modeling podcast, we might all talk a little bit about modeling in a special segment.
That sounds like a good idea. You know, that's what the people came here for. It's not as they say in Die Hard, you didn't hire me for my sparkling personality.
There's all kinds of references in this episode.
That's right. That's right.
I dropped another music reference in there. I'll see if anybody gets it. I'll give a hint. It was in the Mooseroo Cup segment.
Good.
We kicked around maybe talking about, since I'm looking at a new project, how we do a build, really.
Yeah. Well, you and I are probably polar opposites as far as how we approach a new build. Just simply because of the way you approach modeling and the way I approach modeling and what we're looking to do and so compare and contrast when you're looking at a new project, what's that look like?
It looks like me finding a photo or a film clip or something, or an entire reference title on a subject, and deciding to model it kind of outside the context of, well, what kits are available. This one's supposed to be good. That one's supposed to be not so good. I pick a subject I want to model, and then I go from there. Everything else doesn't get a lot of consideration up front. Once I've made a decision, I want to pick this subject.
Yeah. See, now that's the first place you and I differ. Simply, now we both get inspiration from either photograph, film clip. With me, a lot of times it's books, reading a book on a particular person or a particular subject or a particular encounter that first gets me started. But my pathway is I'll look at what's out there and pick the best kit. And sometimes if I'm really interested in doing something and there's not at least a halfway decent kit to start, I'll move on to something else because, as you know, my motto is life's too short to build crappy kits. And, I'm just not, at this point in my life, I am just not inspired enough. There are enough things that I do want to build. As you well know, my list grows longer all the time and is constantly changing as far as what's next on the list. But, unlike the Reba Botan with you or the Katusha that you want to do, I just I don't have the time, the energy, the patience, etc. So there has to be at least a halfway decent kit for me to start modeling something.
I guess from my perspective, that's where the fun is. I'm serious.
Yeah, I know.
It's the getting there. I feel like if how to say it, I'll still pick the best kit of what's available. Unfortunately, some of the subjects that interest me don't have a lot of kits available. And the ones that are available are not so great. Like the Katusha, I want to build the one on the Russian truck.
Right.
The Allen kit's kind of a not so great kit with a bunch of itinerary parts thrown in to make the launcher. So there's better options out there to do that. And I'm going to have to cross kit like 3 or 4 kits to get what I want, but that's okay.
Yeah. Whereas me, I'm not a cross kitter. What I am is I'll select the best kit. I'll do my research and, determine, is this kit a decently buildable kit that will reproduce a decent reproduction of what I want. And then I will go and see what is available in the already done aftermarket arena to maybe add, improve, or enhance the base kit that I've got. But unlike you, I will rarely cross kit 3 or 4 kits or do something that requires a major amount of scratch building. But that's because I don't enjoy that, and I think you do.
Well, and I think my approach lends itself to armor modeling more so than it does to aircraft modeling.
Just simply because of the geometric shapes involved, or
it's, I think, more opportunities to take this from that kit and this from another than it is to start swapping airframe parts from various aircraft kits.
Gotcha.
I mean, you might find an instance when this maker's FW190 wings for this particular version are better than the other guys, but their fuselage goes together better.
Right.
And you might see some of that. I don't know how common that is in aircraft modeling.
It's not hugely common because of the fact that even if one set of wings are better and another fuselage is better, it's really tough to mate the two together because the two different kit manufacturers may have chosen two different break points for the wing fuselage mating surface.
So, by comparison, this Katyusha, Hobby Boss makes the 2-axle version of the truck I want to do. So I can use like all that kit because the 3-axle and the 2-axle trucks were the same length. Just the one had a tandem rear axle. So I don't have to use much of that Allen kit after all. And then the rocket launcher didn't change early post-war. So there's a Hobby Boss kit of a post-war Katyusha that you can cabbage the entire launcher from and make all that work. And you end up using like a half dozen pieces from the Allen kit to blend the two together.
Question for you.
Sure.
And I think you probably did this with the Airfix Bofors kit. You ever pick up a model and build it without doing research?
Yeah, that one. You're right. I did.
Have you ever done it regularly?
No.
Okay. See, and I think that is another difference. I don't think you're inclined to do that, whereas I certainly would pick up and build out of the box a kit without ever having looked into it prior to building it, without ever having done any research, just taken the parts that the manufacturer has given me and try to assemble them and paint them as competently as possible.
Which is what that Bofors Airfix Morris and Bofors build was. And
right.
It was highly rooted in nostalgia. But I'd built that kit as a kid.
But I don't think you'd ever do that with a normal kit.
That's fair. I don't think I'd do that with a 35th scale build. That'd be tough for me.
Or even take a look at 72nd scale aircraft. You first thing you do, make your own photo etch air brakes.
I guess you're right.
Well, and I think that's just it's both chicken and egg. I think it is who you are because you're an engineer, but it's also why you enjoy the hobby. You enjoy doing those things. You enjoy those puzzles. How do I solve this puzzle?
That's a good way to put it. That's exactly right.
Whereas with me, the pleasure is just putting the parts together and painting it and having the finished model done. Now, that doesn't mean I don't ever want to improve it, but most of my improvements will be aftermarket. Very rarely will I scratch build something. It's just the nature of what I enjoy leads me to be more of a kit assembler as opposed to a modeler.
Well, don't sell yourself short.
Well, I'm not trying to sell myself short, but I'm just saying it is a different approach to the model, to the process of modeling. And again, modeling's supposed to be fun. So if you're doing it in a way that you don't enjoy, that's not a hobby, man. That's work. And so,
well, I was about to say that all this, despite the fact that my approach hasn't changed all that much. Now that doing the shows, especially amps, not that it's a bad thing, but in the context of where my competitive drive was focused, and to finally let that go.
Yes.
And just kind of rediscover what I like and why I'm building. And it's gotten a lot more fun. I can say that. I'm still, I may still choose the more difficult path on a lot of things, sometimes deliberately. I'll pick something to because I know it'll be a good application of a technique I want to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the E16. I mean, I've always liked float planes and catapults, but that kit, I saw the deficiency in the dive brakes in the forward pontoon struts on that plane. It's like, hey, it's a simple CAD part to draw. It's a simple thing. If I wanted to start photo etching myself, that would be a good thing to do it on.
Yeah. And so the project became a skill builder for you as well.
And it's going to end up being a big a paint learner too. But I think this Gundam kit for the Moose Cup's going to put one ahead of it, which really needed to happen.
Well, good. Yeah. Well, like I said, with that Harder Steenbeck Infinity, I will tell you, I've owned a fair number of airbrushes in my day, and I have 4 right now. The Harder Steenbeck, because it is so fine an instrument, it is, even for somebody who's experienced with airbrushing, it does take a little getting used to. It's just, again, like any tool, the finer the tool that you're using, the more delicate it is, the more experience it takes to get everything out of it. But there's so much more that you can get out of it because it is such a fine tool.
Is Dr. Miller paying you on the side?
No, he is not. I'm here to tell you. Listen, I'm just seriously, I've been using this Infinity and have been able to do things with it that I have never been able to do with any airbrush ever. It just, I've described it many times as like driving a Ferrari. It is as delicate as a Ferrari. It is as finely tuned as a Ferrari, which means that sometimes you have to play with it a little more because it is so sensitive. But boy, when you get it dialed in, you can do things that I've not been able to do with any other airbrush. So the Gundam will be great practice for you getting that all dialed in.
Well, I better start building it.
You better start. Well, you know what? You can bring it to Vegas and you can build it in our hotel rooms at night.
It's not gonna be time for that.
Oh, sure. You come back to the hotel room. It's 2:00 in the morning. You put a couple of good hours of modeling in at the table.
Well, back to modeling.
They say Vegas never sleeps.
I won't know. I'll be asleep.
Okay.
So you build it your way guy or a follow the instructions guy?
I am becoming a person in my old age who follows the instructions a little more. Now, that doesn't mean that I won't vary the sequence somewhat, but over the many years of modeling, I have probably gotten myself in more trouble by not following the directions than saved myself heartache by not following the directions. I generally am going to at least give the directions the benefit of the doubt. Now, there's some times where it's like, okay, I understand why they're telling me to do it this way, but for painting ease, for assembly ease, for something, I'm going to vary from what the instructions tell me. But that's probably becoming less and less common as I get older. I'm actually following the instructions probably a little more. Whereas when I was younger, I'm not sure I always looked at the instructions. Well, I know for you, instructions are just kind of suggestions along the way.
Well, I might use it to get through the whatever bit of kit I'm using, right?
Right, the basic build sequence.
But for armor, the steps are pretty similar. Well, I don't know. Some of these newer kits are a little more broken down, especially Bronco and like Mini Art. You might want to pay attention a little bit if you're building those. But like the SU-76 we keep talking about, that was there weren't any instructions there.
No. But I do think that probably one of the reasons I am hewing more to the instructions these days is the fact that the part count on kits is going up, and the complexity of kits, as well as the as the engineering becomes finer, the number of kit parts is actually going up on most kits, and so it does require, I think, at least a little more attention to what the instructions tell you is the proper build sequence. I got a question for you.
Sure.
Painting and markings.
What about painting and markings, Dave?
Have you ever in your life used the kit painting instructions and decals?
Now, that's a hard question. Let me think. I don't think so.
I was gonna ask maybe the PT-76. Did you come close to using?
No.
Or was that?
Okay. I mean, okay. That's an interesting one. The scheme is identical. Well, the turret number is not the same, but it's a Soviet naval infantry scheme, right?
Right.
It's pretty basic.
Yeah.
I did not use the kit decals. I used some micro scale decals I had left over from God knows when. No clue how old they are, but they're at least 20 years old. But they're still good.
But now I can tell you that as listeners know, I have a problem regarding decals and decal sheets. I have aftermarket decals out the wazoo. I cannot tell you the last time I assembled a kit and used the kit decals. For me, I want something different. Usually when I'm building a kit, it's because I want to do a particular aircraft or a particular set of markings. And those were usually inspired by somebody's aftermarket decal sheets. So it's pretty rare for me to use the decals in the kit to do one of the markings versions from the kit instructions. I guess that's where I enjoy branching out a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think I've used kit decals very often, and a lot of times it's because they're not very good.
Yes,
the trumpeter decals in that PT-76 were really thick. I've built a lot of Tamiya over the years. Their decals are kind of thick.
Yeah.
This E16 Paul from Fujimi, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
The problem is you're gonna have to cobble up markings if you don't use the kit decals.
I've got so many Japanese decals, Japanese tail codes, Japanese Heinemaru, Japanese.
Yeah, you can get the national markings, but the tail code is where it all comes apart.
I have sheet after sheet of individual tail codes,
and I bet E16 Paul is not on it.
But keep it.
Yeah, you gotta piece it together.
You piece it together, but I can guarantee you we can come up with it. Yes, that is piecing together tail codes and serial numbers on aircraft is one of the fun little joys of aircraft decaling. Whereas armor decaling, I don't think is nearly so.
No, typically
intricate.
Not. You're right.
Yeah. So, Mike, you got any shout outs for the episode?
I do, Dave. I've got 2 shout outs.
All right.
The first one is to Mr. Mike Idacavage. He's a old friend of mine from a long time back, and I want to thank him for his incredible generosity to Plastic Model Mojo. Mike has donated through our PayPal link.
Yay.
And if anyone else would like to do that, they can do so at www.plasticmodelmojo.com. There's a heart icon in the upper right-hand corner of the screen where you can make a direct contribution to our show. We really appreciate it. And Mike, I can't say enough. I was very humbled and just really flattered by your generosity. To back up a little bit, again, Mike is an old friend from my first steps of my modeling journey into what I would call, quote, serious modeling. Back when I was a teenager, he was instrumental in setting up the first IPMS chapter in my hometown of Johnson City, Tennessee. It was the Southern Appalachian Scale Modelers. It no longer exists, but that was back in the 80s, 1985, 86, 87. I've rode to my first model shows at least one with Mike. Typically, those were in North Carolina. We went to this show, Arm Air chapter in Salisbury, North Carolina. I know we went there. We went to Charlotte. We went to the French Broad chapter in Asheville, North Carolina. He probably remembers all of these. I've not seen Mike since probably 1987, 1988, but we're planning a little reunion at the IPMS National Convention in Las Vegas.
All right.
And hopefully the listeners will get to enjoy our first reunion in, 30-something years at the Plastic Model Mojo table at the National Convention. So, Mike, look forward to talking to you again. It's been a long time. I'm not the 17-year-old kid in the room anymore.
72-year-old kid?
17-year-old kid in the room, Dave.
Okay. Sounded like you said 72.
Well, that's your 60-year-old ears at work.
It's
there.
Probably.
Good times. I'm really looking forward to it.
That's great.
So, Mike, thank you. Thank you again for your generosity. We really appreciate it. You got one, Dave?
Yes, I do. And it's a kind of similar themed. I've been going to nationals for, like I said, I think 25 of them. My first was in 1985 in Indy. And okay, I'm stretching my memory here, so forgive me if some of the details aren't right. Sometime in, I think it was 2005 at Kansas City Nationals, I first saw models by a modeler by the name of Steve Hustad, who is up in Minnesota, I believe. And he does aircraft, 72nd scale aircraft dioramas, which I think is something that's very, very hard to do. And he does them amazingly. And his one of his particular things is he does them based on photographs. And he did a Ju-188 crashed in the water along the shore of an island. I think that was the one he brought to Kansas City, which is still to this day, one of the most amazing aircraft dioramas I've ever seen. And I've admired his work. Most recently, he did a series of Battle of Britain 109s shot down based on different photographs that he was posting on Roy Sutherland's Barracuda Cow's Facebook page. And I've spoken to him only once. It was at a national. It was nothing more than to say, hey, nice model, really great. That's fantastic. Words to that effect. Well, as a matter of fact, as a benefit of this podcast is that Steve heard me mention him on a previous podcast, or actually another listener heard him who knew Steve and mentioned to him, hey, you were mentioned on this podcast. As a result, he recently reached out to us, told us how much he was enjoying the podcast, which gave me the opportunity to mention how much I enjoyed and admired his modeling. And none of that would have ever happened without this podcast. And getting to interact with really great modelers that I've seen, but never would have had the chance to interact with them about their modeling if it weren't for this podcast. It's a benefit I never considered when we started it, Mike. I never thought any of this, of what's happened, would happen. And boy, did I never anticipate getting to interact with some people that I admire as really great modelers. So that was a side benefit that was reinforced recently when Steve reached out. And Steve, thank you so much for reaching out and giving me the opportunity to actually tell you how much I've enjoyed your modeling and hope to see a whole lot more of it. So, Mike, you got a final shout out?
I do, Dave. I want to shout out from episode 42, our guest, Mr. Evan McCallum, a.k.a. Panzermeister 36 from YouTube. We had a great time talking to Evan, but I wanted to single out one particular detail from that conversation that really has nothing to do with his internet presence. In getting that segment set up, another one of our Ottawan friends, Ian McCauley, who knew Evan from their club, had asked me to remind Evan that he had taught Evan everything he knows as a little joke, as a little humor, right?
Yeah.
And I did that, and Evan handled that with a level of humility and respect that really surprised those guys up there, because I've heard from them since then. He showed a genuine appreciation of the hand that was extended to him by those crotchety old guys when he entered the hobby. And I just want to say, I think that speaks volumes of Mr. McCallum's character. He's a super guy. And as another listener put it, he's the real deal skills-wise. So keep it up, Evan, and let's see some more of those color-specific how-tos you're promising. Us old dogs want to learn some new tricks.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, that makes a really great point for all you crotchety old modelers, club members. When the new guy shows up, new into the hobby or new into a club, reach out, be giving, be generous, be supportive. And most modelers I know are. But the benefit is, if you do that, you can grow the next generation of Evan McCallums for us. And that's a huge benefit to our hobby. Look how much he's already given back to the hobby through his YouTube channel. So bravo to all those guys who, when Evan showed up, took their time to take him seriously and to show him what they knew.
And now he's showing them and us.
That's right. And all of us.
Well, we hope to get him back on.
Yes, absolutely. That was a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to more down the road.
All right, Dave. Well, we're getting to the end of this one.
Yep. Looks like our time has just about expired. So you know what they say, Mike.
So many kits.
So little time.
All right, Dave. Take it easy, man.
You too. Take care.